This is the night before I leave for Ecuador, and I was told that I should do a certain experiment. I should describe a picture to the best of my ability before I leave, and then describe the very same picture after I come back. So we got una hambre, y tengo una camiseta azul, los jeans, zapatos negros, él es blanco, un sombrero, el hat, I don't know. What the hell is horse? I'm off to a rough start.
On the cold, snowy morning of January 8th, 2020, over 40 students of Goshen College say goodbye to their loved ones as they embark on a journey of a lifetime. They are about to spend 3 months studying and serving in a foreign country. One group is headed for Quito, Ecuador, with the other group headed for Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. After the bus finally arrived to send them on their journey, it was time to leave their spot in Indiana where the leafy maple grows. There was a healthy mix of joy and sadness as the students of study service term headed for the airport, the place that would take them farther away from home than they ever had before. They would be going blind into the unknown. It wouldn't be until the Ecuador group lands in Quito that they finally get to meet their leader, Andrew Hartzler.
We got to Quito, flew in, got here around the nighttime, and a vivid memory I have is just getting into the airport and first seeing Andrew through 2 open doors. It's like, there he is. It's like, gave him a hug, probably knew him.
The foundation that we are partnered with, it's basically a foundation that's supporting the ongoing livelihood of the Kofan people, which is an Ecuadorian indigenous tribe, but they have classrooms there, so we use that.
When I got to the Fundación, all I wanted to do was sleep.
It was just all kind of surreal. I didn't really realize that we were actually in another country and about to be here for 3 months.
I was thinking to myself, I want to go home. I cannot believe I'm here for 3 months. If this is what it's going to be like the entire time, I'm going to hate it.
It still hasn't fully sunk in yet. I just hadn't fully processed it.
But yeah, then once we got here, I felt very comfortable.
There was a newness of living in a city. There was a newness of being surrounded by a new culture, new people.
Knowing how they feel about these kind of situations that I've been through. Because I know how hard it is to learn our language and being in a situation where you're forced to speak that language.
For me, I learned English too, and I know that to learn a language, you really have to push beyond the fear.
When this group first got here in January, what was supposed to be a daily rain was instead an intense full sun for a week and a half.
The students' first week was met with truly abnormal weather for the season. This is all due to climate change. In fact, it was so dry during the rainy season that the nearby mountain next to their foundation even caught fire.
And many Ecuadorians are like, this is like August weather in January.
We went to this big cathedral downtown. That was really cool to see.
We visited El Panecillo, which is the largest aluminum statue. A mini museum, and you can climb up to the top and see a beautiful view of all of Quito.
The people there is crazy, and they are a lot of cars, and it's very crazy the life in there.
As crazy as Quito sounds, it does not compare to the chaos of life that is the United States. For these students, Quito was a well-needed refuge from their fast-paced lives. What was just as chaotic, however, was the public transportation.
There's different means of transportation here in Ecuador. Of course, we have taxis, and then we have a lot of bus lines, which makes it a little bit interesting that you have to be jumping from one bus to another.
And this is how many of these SST students came to school every day, using the often crowded public transportation. And they wouldn't have been able to do it without their host family's help.
My host family, I really like my host family. They always eat at the house, which I find very interesting. They like very natural foods.
Food is really important. It's one of the most important things in our home. we're always with food in mind. So it's something that unites us, it's something that shows us how much we care about somebody, because you're making something from scratch.
The food in Ecuador is very consistent.
The food in Ecuador was a bit of what I expected. It was a lot of rice.
I really love rice, and I never thought I would say this, but I'm getting kind of tired of eating plain white rice.
I like getting to try different kinds of soups. Like I honestly don't really eat soup very often in the States, so getting to try different kinds of soups.
Except it does get a little bit repetitive for me. It's rice and meat every day.
At first it was really good. Like I just really love the food, but like now I'm starting to get a little bit tired of it.
Everybody says that they're getting tired of it, but I'm thanking the good Lord in heaven that I'm not getting tired of the food.
Aquí en Ecuador hay mucha variedad. Tenemos lo que es la costa, la sierra, son diferentes sabores obviamente.
We went to a food market and we had a list of things that we defined. Each group was assigned a list.
One of their academic learning days was simply learning about the different fruits and veggies in Ecuador and what each of them are used for.
It doesn't raise sugar levels.
What makes SST unique as compared to other exchange programs? Very, very few college and university exchange programs have a host family stay the entire time. You know, when you live with a family, you really get to experience the culture of that country much more so than living in a dorm.
Yeah, I absolutely loved my host family. They were super supportive, super fun. They involved me in lots of different things.
We were able to relax well on weekdays and then go out on the weekends, so I never felt like really overwhelmed or rushed with a lot of things.
I have a 12-year-old sister, which is fun. We get to hang out together. And I get to hang out with Max's family a lot because his host parents are technically my host grandparents.
Super kind, always explains things really slowly to me in Spanish, makes great food.
On weekends we would do some kind of like biking thing, or we'd like tour the city, and that was always fun. And then my mom was just a sweetheart who always wanted to feed me food and stuff me, which was great.
At the beginning, my relationship with my mom was a little bit weird, very protective with me, but that's totally understandable. But after like a few days, she understood that I'm responsible. I had my freedom to go around and to spend time with my friends.
And sometimes they'll take me to see something like a park. And I was absolutely blessed with my father, Jose, being absolutely perfectly fluent in English. Personally, I was blessed with that just so I could have someone to talk to, although I did speak a lot of Spanish with my mom and my grandma.
Eric's grandmother even invited him to a Venezuelan birthday party, which was a lot of noise.
Sitting in a classroom just listening to people talk about stuff is not as an effective way of learning as visually seeing and physically being in places. Just the ability to see stuff in person rather than just hearing about it in a classroom. Volcán Pichincha is a semi-dormant volcano that is above Quito, which is about 15,500 feet, which is about 1,200 feet higher than any mountain in the continental U.S.
Going up the Teleférico and hiking up Mount Pichincha was, for me, definitely a highlight of SST.
That was probably one of my first experiences in Ecuador when I was truly like, this is something that is a highlight.
That was such a cool experience. I'm not sure I've ever been able to see that much of Quito before. You were just able to see for miles.
Well, yeah, look how high we are now.
Yeah. No, we don't need to.
That day, it was clear. There were clouds, but like not around the mountain. Like you could see just like all of Quito. It was amazing.
For me, I love hiking personally. It's the highest point of the world that I've ever been. And that just gave me so much joy to look out at the city and see so much. South Quito over there, North Quito over there.
And there was this swing that we were able to ride that you just ride out, and if you took a right picture, it looked like you were literally soaring above the sky.
A lot of it reminded me of going through like Middle Earth, like Lord of the Rings, New Zealand type places.
And to be able to spend that much time up there and like explore with friends and see those beautiful views was something else.
Mindo is a unique place. It's part of a cloud forest region on the west side of the Andes, so the Pacific Ocean side of the Andes mountain range.
So this is it. Like this is like legit the rainforest.
The cloud forest really is just a rainforest that's at altitude. That's all that means. So it's a rainforest environment, rainforest vegetation, but it's just at an altitude and it's not at more closer to sea level.
Going to the cloud forest in Mindo was the first time as a group that we were going to a place that wasn't an urban city.
Just such a different environment compared to the mountain.
The town of Quito itself is very like calm, chill, laid back, which was really nice to just kind of have a more relaxed setting than Quito, where it's kind of hustle and bustle, big city.
Personally, I'd like to do a honeymoon there or something because I just really enjoyed the hotel we were staying at and just the things to do there. It's really fun.
While the hotel in Mindo was all fun and leisure, the small houses in the cloud forest were the exact opposite.
I went down to see my other friends, and they're like bunk houses, and there's like 3 of them to a room and like bunk beds and stuff. So really thankful that we were able to stay where we did.
The best experience that I lived so far here in Ecuador, basically because like the nature is absolutely amazing, like the rainforest, the environment, the rain. Everything is so special and so unique.
But there's still like a huge diversity of wildlife, plants, animals. It was super fun for me.
There are so many diverse types of trees in the same area. There's so many types of hummingbirds, there are toucans.
So there's 5,000 plant species in the cloud forest, and there are 1,000 species of orchids.
Well, I have a really good memory of that experience. Yeah, it was absolutely like a magic place.
It was so cool to just get a glimpse of the biodiversity that is present here in Ecuador.
It was surreal just to think, wow, I'm in the rainforest.
I especially liked how we were able to go hiking in that nearby park where we could see tons of water fountains and how we could bring a dog with us. That was amazing.
When we were in Mindo, we were going on a hike. We were going to go across a cable car to see these really beautiful waterfalls. Before we went, we got on a truck to drive on up there, and a little dog started barking and chasing after us. Picked up the dog, stuck him in the back of the truck, and then he came with us the whole entire time. Named him Hammond, and Hammy. He was a little cute.
Otavalo is a unique place because it has the largest artisan market in the world. The primary persons that sell things there are the Otavaleño Quichua people, which is an indigenous tribe.
The market that we saw there was massive. I mean, not only was it the market square that was filled, but the roads were just shut down and filled with art and music, and yeah, it was wonderful to be around and to see all of that unique art as well.
It does have an incredible amount of handcrafted blankets and clothing and leather crafts and all kinds of things.
Bargained my way into buying a hammock and of course this really nice poncho.
So we've been visiting over these past 2 days very sacred places to the indigenous people.
The Biguche waterfall is also a sacred site to them. It's now owned by the people who used to work on that land or their descendants, and they take care of the waterfall.
We just visited a tree.
Yep, so there's a tree at the highest point that kind of is in that area. On the hill is a tree that's sacred to them. It's been vandalized, so it's still hanging on barely, but it was also a strategic place for them when they were trying to battle the Inca invasion.
We hiked this like big crater lake. It was supposed to just be like a 2-hour hike where we just kind of like go around and like kind of walk around. Like walking around the whole thing, Andrew was like, no, that takes like 5 or 6 hours. And we like notice at like the 45 minute to an hour mark, like, let's just keep going because we're in too deep at this point, and we just like start running the rest of the way. And we end up making around the whole area in about 3 hours. And I'm pretty sure it took like a 4-hour nap. But that was super memorable experience, super fun. yeah, and a great group of guys to do it with.
So rather than just talking about provinces in Ecuador and what's there and how the geography is different, and we decided it was much more important to invest time and money into going to those provinces and seeing all that stuff in person.
The coast trip overall was insanely beautiful. Over a period of 9 days, we visited 6 cities and small towns.
It was pretty jam-packed with stuff, a lot of driving, so I know some people didn't necessarily enjoy being in the bus for hours on end. The coast is really different. You kind of noticed it immediately after getting out of the bus, just the humidity and the heat, and it was so much more flat.
It was also nice to be able to walk and breathe instead of being up in the mountains.
I didn't realize how much I missed like shorts and just the freedom to like be outside in weather that was hot and like wear whatever I wanted. It was really nice.
We were able to visit coastal beaches and very rustic small hostels.
I love Mampiche. I know a lot of people didn't like Mampiche, but I really like Mampiche.
Mampiche was definitely my vibe. I loved it there. It was great.
But it was very, very hot and kind of hard to sleep, and there were a lot of bugs. That was the first time I'd ever used a mosquito net in my life to sleep.
Having to be in that environment and then like sleep with just like my underwear and like no sheet, just like
laying in bed, you just had to be like, oh, just like sweaty, just dying, but overall really fun.
But I really did like the town, and they had a lot of delicious food.
We also stayed at a resort at one point.
I loved the resort that we stayed at. It was beautiful, and it was right on the beach, so you could just like walk outside and then go to the beach and then come back and go to the pool. It was a really cool experience.
So it was interesting to see the different paces of life and those smaller communities compared to much larger cities.
To kind of get to see how diverse Ecuador really is, and to enjoy some time on the beach.
We were able to go to the national park beach named Los Frailes, and we were able to spend some time climbing on rocks and swimming in the water and just exploring in general. And some of us got so excited, including myself, that we did not apply sunscreen. When we were leaving, we were pretty obviously burnt.
Oh yes, this hat. I got it in Cuenca, which was when we kind of looped back around into the mountains.
So Cuenca is also called like the Red City because all the buildings are supposed to like sort of be designed and built in the style of Spanish buildings.
It's known as the Panama hat of the world, but I think it's like Toquilla hat or something like that. It actually came from Ecuador, not from Panama. And I just knew I had to get one. They were a bit expensive, so it was kind of hard for me to find one that was like decently priced, but yeah, it was really cool to kind of see how they make these and know that they're all handmade.
Something else that was very powerful for me was getting to spend time with the Indigenous community near Riobamba. I just really admire how like solidarity is such a priority for them.
They're peace of mind, you know, they're more calm. They wake up early, 5 a.m., they work until 10. That's something I really took from me, was that connection to the nature, where the food comes, and to be grateful for the food we have.
And thus, visiting the indigenous community was their final activity before heading back to Quito. Just like that, the SST students' time together in Quito was over, and they would soon spread out across the country for service.
Service equals reflection.
Ruth and I made a big effort to define service early and often and make sure it was really clear, like, what is the purpose of it?
Like, who am I? How do I get through this? I love these people that I'm with. I don't like these people I'm with. Service does not equal productivity.
Bad service is not listening to people, not having a relationship with them, just doing what you think they need. Service is all about relationships. Service is listening, and I think that is a critical part of relationships.
See, the part that sucks about going into service is that you basically have to start all over again. You think you know Quito? Well, too bad. Time to start all over.
I'm excited, but I'm also really nervous for service. I'm excited to meet my new family, but I'm also really nervous to be like completely uncomfortable and unfamiliar with everything all over again.
I'm really nervous because I will have 3 host sisters. I think I'm nervous, but I'm also just very excited.
But I think the nerves are real, partially just because like we've gotten into a routine here, and that routine feels really good, and it feels really comfortable now.
So to have that comfort just kind of taken away suddenly, I'm fairly nervous about it, but I also know that it is likely going to be a very formative experience for me.
Get to know Ecuador hands-on. It gives you a new perspective on things without being around all these English speakers and white people.
Letting go a little bit and allowing us to like experience a new place and establish a new routine is kind of intimidating.
But in that unknown, there's also so much excitement that I feel.
It was time to say goodbye to their host families and move on to new ones.
Transition was interesting. So I had to say goodbye to my dad and my mom the night before, but there were tears shed. So I took a taxi to the Carcelin terminal. I was there with Ben, Christopher, and Martine.
For the rest of the students in the Southern Bus Terminal, they said their goodbyes and hopped on the buses for another new adventure.
This is different. So my introduction to being here in Riobamba was celebrating Carnival. And not a lot of people celebrate Carnival in the United States. And yeah, they're missing out. It's basically a holiday where you get together with a bunch of friends and family. And it's very wet. You get very wet.
My experience was I got there and the next day my family took me to a huge parade and also people handing you alcohol and in the bathroom. That happened to me. They rolled up a piece of newspaper and set it on fire, and then they stuck it in the back of your pants and you danced around, and eventually that happened to me as well. It was also pretty fun. Interesting way to start out service.
The best thing about Riobamba is, for me, the geography. Everywhere you look, there's mountains. I mean, that's how it is in a lot of cities.
Cuatro nevados, que es el Chimborazo, el Tungurahua, el Altar, y el Cariguairazo.
Chimborazo, right there. That peaks out maybe once a week.
Definitely better than Quito, my favorite city yet. Not too hot, not too cold.
And I really like just the way the city is laid out, too.
Es una ciudad para hacer mercado, es muy cerca, puedes caminar, no necesitas de carros.
And it's just a very small, safe town that I feel comfortable walking around in by myself.
Very, very chill city, not a lot of people out at night. Safe streets, you feel at home. It's just a small town, it's really nice.
A mí me gusta la ciudad porque es tranquila.
In here in Riobamba is relaxing. For me it's relaxing because you have the mountains, you can go with the bicycle without a problem. That is the difference. Quito is crazy and Riobamba is relaxing.
Riobamba is arguably even more of an escape from the Western world chaos of life than Quito, a perfect location for Goshen College students to live during service, a typically more quiet and reflective portion of study service term.
My service host family is a very good family, and I like them a lot. Ines, my mom, is a great cook. She's very sarcastic, but that's kind of what I like about her. She's very motherly. My grandma, she is 98 years old, and she just kind of shuffles around, but we exist together, and it's just very interesting interacting with each other.
I think I personally connected with my brother more than anyone else in my family. Who agree on a lot of things with him, and honestly it was kind of crazy. I had to get matched up with him, so it was really awesome.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she loved to cook for us. She's an amazing cook. And then my dad was the executive director of my job, so I got to interact with him a lot, and overall they were just a really loving family, and I had some really great moments with them.
In some ways, Riobamba, it's kind of a small town, really, really small town feel. All dirt roads. The only part that's actually paved is just the plaza area. And plenty of dogs. Dogs literally everywhere. Anywhere you look, there's a dog.
I would go on runs a couple times a week, and every time I would go on runs, my German Shepherd, Jonas, that was his name, would join me. And at this massive pit bull just like comes like sprinting out of the house, just like snarling, barking, and then my dog Jonas pounced on the pit bull, just like snarled in his face, just like rah, rah, and then like the pit bull just kind of like scurried away, and then my dog just like sat there like looking at me like, did I do a good job? And I was like, yes, I am so proud of you.
So I just lived for 3 weeks in the Indigenous village of Basquitai, Ecuador. It was a very humble house that I lived in, all dirt floors, cement, walls. Food basically consisted of a lot of potatoes that were in virtually everything I ate. The meat varied, it was either like cuy or chicken.
With my family, it was very unique too. I had 6 brothers, 1 sister, a very big family. Like I always wanted different experience, and I definitely got that with my indigenous community. For example, one story, when I arrived there, gave me the idea, oh, maybe you can teach some English to the community. There was like an abandoned school. 20 minutes after, they announced in the speaker of the community in Quechua. It's just like, oh, there's a foreigner, you can teach some English.
I was in Puyo. Puyo is a city right along the Amazon jungle. Like there's some roads into the jungle and things like that, so my host family would take me to some of the tourist attractions into the Amazon. So cool. Paul and I both served at the same organization. It was called English 101. It was a private English school, and so what Paul and I would do is just be classroom assistants, basically. So a lot of times that was just helping with pronunciation. Not all of the teachers were native English speakers. Some of them, English was their second language.
I worked at a cooperative, at a local shop, at the radio station, an off-site radio station recording. But I also was kind of thrown into basically every single situation with no prior experience. Helped write a $600,000 grant.
Yeah, I probably had the chillest or easiest job, if you could even call it that, on service. So in the morning, I would feed the pigs. Sometimes I would pick avocados after that. Once or twice a week, I'd be like, okay, Dad, what is there to do today? And he'd be like, oh, we're just doing nothing today, if that's all right with you. And I was like, yep, okay.
I was essentially just like learning and following my host dad everywhere, doing what he did. I never had a normal schedule because what they do changes every day. Some days I would be in the field harvesting potatoes. They do a lot of like moving of their animals. So I would usually walk around and help him retie his animals.
There's not that sense of I have to do this, do that. You can see a lot of that, like that patience of life.
And what I do for work is I work in what is essentially a toddler daycare in the mornings, and then in the afternoons I work with slightly older kids, like elementary school aged kids, and they treat these kids very well. They do education sessions with them, they take them outside, they feed them a lot, and so I think it's very interesting to see just how they develop Ecuadorian children here as opposed to American children in America.
I enjoyed it a lot, working with the little kids. Originally I thought it was going to be kind of hard and obnoxious because I never thought I would be really fun with kids. But after a while it became fun with being with them and doing stuff with them and activities, and maybe just like brushing their teeth or brushing their hair in the morning. It became fun, and just taking care of them and having a little relationship with them was pretty amazing.
The first decision we're making for the sake of the country is to restrict the entry of foreigners on international flights, by international land, and sea transport, starting at 23:59, March 15.
And now they're telling me I have to go home tomorrow.
So we started thinking a few days ago about how to bring them back if we needed to, and then that moment happened a lot sooner than I thought it would.
I mean, unprecedented in Goshen history. As things progressed in March, it was pretty clear we had to get them home quickly.
We immediately made the decision, along with the college, to bring the students back as quickly as possible.
Ecuador is closing their borders, but allowing people to leave.
El coronavirus, bueno, el coronavirus aquí en Riobamba por el momento no hemos escuchado que hay casos, pero se rumorea, bueno, hay un rumor que hay como 5 casos, pero no se sabe si es cierto, entonces no sabemos.
I was kind of expecting that we might leave a little bit early given how fast the coronavirus was spreading, but I never expected it to be the day after we really started talking about it.
I wouldn't say I was anticipating it, but I had mentally prepared myself enough that I was like, okay, this makes sense. I'm okay with doing this.
It was that because I wasn't even expecting. That was probably the worst, because I wasn't expecting that possibility. And it just shook me like that.
They really just did that to me. They really just said, no, you're done. I've experienced relief, sadness, regret, and just overall not knowing how to feel.
So then to just have to really up and leave, I was kind of worried, feeling a bit robbed, a little bit scared about the whole situation, but also excited to be heading home.
I packed up all my things. We had a brief, 5-minute conversation about how everything had gone, how grateful I was to them, even though it was really hard for me overall. And I was gone within about half an hour.
The goal was to live a normal Ecuadorian life with a normal Ecuadorian family and go to work just like everybody else. And I think I got that. I am glad that they decided to do it now and not any earlier, because if they did it any earlier, I think it would have cheapened the experience of service, and service would have been too short.
Ruth and I were on the phone for about 8 hours straight, making arrangements, calling taxi services, finding points to pick up.
Thanks to Eric's brother, who owned a transportation service to and from Quito, Noah, Thomas, and Eric left Riobamba to reunite with the group in Quito.
We got 19 of the 21 here 24 hours after we started that process.
But only just in the nick of time, barely getting them to Quito before you couldn't travel in the country anymore, and then trying to find them planes home when everything was canceled.
A number of people are working continuously to find flights for the students. Challenging because the entire global flight system is disrupted dramatically by coronavirus.
We've been here for pretty much a day. We've been trying to keep ourselves busy. We're kind of driving ourselves crazy a little bit.
The Fundación is just a prison. It's just walls. It's horrible. I hate the Fundación.
Just trying to pass by the time until we figure out what the hell is going on.
It's interesting, we've had brief conversations about it so far, about how SST is one big training in how to deal with uncertainty and things outside of your control. The whole rest of the world is deep into that whole training now.
And then the next evening, Andrew and Ruth were like, pack up your things. In an hour, we're going to the retreat center.
And we were able to get out of the city just before they put in all the travel restrictions into this kind of little retreat center. Not very little, I guess, 300 acres of retreat center.
Very thankful. That turnaround was about an hour to where we made the decision to get the students out to the retreat center where we're at now. But the name of this place is Refugio, the Refuge. And last night when we got wind of the possibility of them restricting movement even more, we immediately called to try to make this happen. I'm incredibly thankful that they accepted us.
And so we've been kind of just trying to relax and find ways to keep our minds off of stressing too much about the whole situation.
A place where they can be more mentally and physically relaxed, and where we can care for them better than we could where they were at the Fundación.
Right now it's a lot better. We've gotten a list of things and a schedule. We can just do stuff every day and hope that progress is made.
There's actually a lot of really cool stuff to do here. We get to hike. Really, the only thing we can do now is just enjoy the time we have here. If I get any opportunity to leave, you bet I'm taking it.
Gabe's girlfriend's contacts, I don't know, it was a whole wild thing. Found out of this charter plane coming in that a senator of Arizona had helped organize for some citizens, and then we found out this morning that 6 of us could go with them.
We were getting alumni and parents to, call their senators and call their representatives and try to get a flight coming out of Ecuador. So that was really crazy.
And so that's what me, Eric, Max, Thomas, Liz, and Lucas are doing. We're hopping on a charter plane, fancy charter plane with this other group.
And just like that, the lucky group of 6 was sent off to the airport. As they went through several police checkpoints, they took one last look at the city they once called home.
So right now we're sitting at this like little tiny terminal. So the charter planes come into a completely separate terminal with like a completely separate little security thing. And we're just waiting here until we can take off and fly to Miami.
Once in Miami, all 6 students went their separate ways on flights to their respective hometowns.
How you doing, bud?
It's a shame that SST had to end this way. It's not how any student should come home after being away for so long, but in the end, they still had an experience like no other.
A ver, bueno, entonces, este es después de mi viaje en SST. Este es la pintura en la primera del video. Voy a describir esta pintura. Este es un caballo y este es mi bisabuelo. Y mi bisabuelo es con ropas azules. Él es un gringo. Y este caballo es más grande que mi bisabuelo. Y el tiempo del año es verano en esta pintura. Y todo es verde. Muchos árboles atrás, acá. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Good job.